California Congressman Kevin Kiley. Congressman, it's good to see you. Here's what I know. You're fighting like heck to try to stop this whole proposal. And at the national level, I think one of the things you're proposing is to say, hey, you can't tax people in retrospect. You can't pass something and then say, well, it goes into effect a year ago and we're going to chase you down and find you if you left the state. How's that going? Tell us about it.
Yeah, the whole thing is just completely crazy. I mean, it's not really even a tax per se. It's just outright confiscation. They're saying that if you're someone who has a net worth over $1 billion, we're just going to take 5% of your assets. Granted, a lot of people of that net worth don't have 5% of their assets, liquid, and so they'd have to unwind companies and this sort of thing. So what's worse, though, is they're saying that even though this won't pass and take effect until next year, it would apply to anyone who was in California at the beginning of this year. So yes, it would apply retroactively to former residents who have left the state and say, we're going to seize 5% of your assets too. So what you've seen happen already is in order to avoid getting caught up in this, a lot of high net worth individuals have already left California. The founders of Google left, Mark Zuckerberg left, Larry Ellison left, Peter Thiel. It's estimated that $1 trillion in wealth has already left California just in anticipation of this insane policy.
And that has huge consequences because when they leave, they take their money with them. And of course, you need some type of tax base to stay in the state. And I imagine you want innovation, and they are big business leaders. But Congressman, I'm kind of curious about, what do you make of Bernie Sanders, the senator from Vermont, flying across the country to be in your state to join arms, I guess, lock arms with the union that's really behind, that's pushing for this? What do you make of that? Should he just stay in Vermont? Why is he coming to California?
This is actually not the first time. He actually came to my district with AOC last year and held a rally. And I was like, you're welcome here anytime, Bernie, because the more he and AOC had to say, I think the less appealing their entire, ideology and brand is. But this is out, sort of the full realization of Bernie's agenda. Let's just have the government draw a line in the sand and say, if you're on the wrong side of that line, we're just going to go and seize your assets. And by the way, they start at $1 billion, but then they'll gradually move down the line. And to your point, when you have these people leaving the state, then suddenly you're not getting their income taxes or anything else either. In California, the government is totally dependent on the highest earning individuals. In some years, 50% of our income taxes comes from the top 1% of earners. So this whole thing is going to cause the house of cards that is California's finances to come tumbling down and take jobs with it.
All right, so while you got some senators coming to your state to pitch crazy ideas, you got a whole bunch of congressmen and senators who say, we're going to skip the State of the Union this year. We're not going to go. Last year at the joint address, they held up the little signs. That didn't look so good. So now they're throwing their own counter rally or something on the National Mall. Is this going to look as ineffectual as last year's protest?
I think ineffectual is a kind word for it. I mean, when Joe Biden was president, I attended the State of the Union. I didn't heckle. I didn't like what he had to say in most circumstances. But I thought, this is about something larger than partisanship. It's a tradition that goes back to our country's founding, and it's an opportunity for the president to set forth his vision for the coming year. So you can stand up and applaud if you want, or you can remain seated if you want. Last year, they just decided they weren't going to applaud anything, even things that were just, unambiguously good. So they can do all of that. But the idea of just saying we're not even going to show up, we're not even going to hear what he has to say, I think it just shows politics at its absolute worst.
In terms of the message that President Trump is going to deliver, what is it do you think your constituents in your district need to hear from President Trump next week during the State of the Union?
I think people want to hear about how far we've come, but then where we're going from here. So when you look at the border, for example, 180-degree different story than we had Biden and Mayorkas in charge. And you have positive signs with the economy as well in terms of growth, in terms of the stock market. But I do think it's important to hone in on where people are still struggling. In a lot of parts of the country, affordability is a big issue. In my state, by the way, where Bernie is coming to visit, maybe he should go to a grocery store or go to a gas station, because in California, we have the highest gas prices, the third highest grocery prices, the highest electricity rates, the third highest water bills, the second highest housing costs. And so, you kind of have a recipe in terms of California and Gavin Newsom for causing affordability to spiral out of control. But I do think that the president, will address that as well with the ways that he's trying to work with Congress to address what is the top issue for many people across this country.
Congressman, we're going to shift gears here real quick. A sobering story indeed. Avalanche near Lake Tahoe. 8 lives lost in that. I do believe that is your district, sir. And so I just wonder if you could kind of give us the latest in your reflections on that.
Yeah, it's just an unthinkable tragedy. I mean, we had this just devastating storm with completely out of control weather. You're seeing pictures there the last couple of days. You know, we're still getting all the details on this. It was apparently a backcountry skiing trip. I think it had been going on for a few days. I think 6 people on the trip were able to be rescued or were able to find to escape the avalanche. But, you know, sadly, we've now confirmed tragically that 9 folks have passed away. I think that 1 person is still unaccounted for. But my thoughts and prayers are just with the families and with our 5 rescue teams as well, who have really just courageously been out in these horrendous conditions trying to prevent this from being even more of a tragedy.
Well, we join our prayers with yours. Congressman Kevin Kiley, thanks for being with us